I thank you all for your expressions of care at this time of the recent transitioning of now two family members in Trinidad, my uncle's daughter and my brother. It is indeed an honor to be a part of this distinguished panel, which comprises my teachers, without whom I may never have made it to this panel in the first place. I refer to tutors, Professor Liverpool, Assistant Professor Otley, and our host, Assistant Professor Francis. Included in the mix is also Mr. Masimba, along with class colleague Robin Imamshan. I thank you all for your shared knowledge, and with humility, I'm forever receptive to learn much, much more from you. Now, my statement for consideration bears the title, The Bajan Invasion and Its Impact on the Evolution and Popularization of the soca music throughout the diaspora. Please note that this is a work in progress. That word invasion, unless it is to be understood to carry an undertone of bacchanal or Lego, will be replaced with a more suitable impact. So we can speak of the Bajan impact instead of the Bajan invasion, which in the musings of George Jones, who was the former drummer of the Bajan music band Square One, and I quote, "Invasion seems hostile, like unauthorized access," unquote. This impact was of such that it brought empowerment to and fueled the spirits, especially the West African spirits of the peoples of Trinidad and the peoples of this African diaspora. Indeed, the Bajan cropover was a part of the servants at these impacts. There, the culture of this little England was always on stage. These impacts were like two-way streets. Performers not only carried, but brought when they returned to Barbados. They brought with them museo-cultural best practices of what they had experienced to shower upon the Barbadian skates. The artists brought back to Barbados their earnings. A lot of the money which went into circulation in the island assisted to boost our economy. Such and more were the resultant values of these impacts. I'm of the view that since soca is dynamic, any other music form which impinges upon it, be it groovy, bashment, even jammo, independent of country of origin, will always go towards making the soca more popular and ultimately contributing to its evolution. Bajan musical diasporic impact, though not soca in nature, happened as early as in the 1960s with the Merrymen of Barbados. In relatively recent times, it however occurred in at least 4 museological performance waves, with an upcoming 5th wave entailing primarily bashment soca on full virtual platforms. Now, the first recent wave was in the early 1980s. Out of the Barbadian Blue Wave studios of Eddie Grant and donned with driving bass, there was Burn Mr. Hardin 1979, Jack 1982, and Boots 1982. Whilst the mighty Gabby's Boots remained banned from the airways of Barbados, it was known to have played 40 consecutive times at one fete in Trinidad. Indeed, it was said to be Trinidad's Christmas Road March of 1984. Gabby's Boots' impact was not only made upon Trinidad. He traveled and performed in St. Vincent, where the Vincentians embraced boots as well as Jack. He entertained in Grenada, Martinique, Jamaica, and the Cayman Islands. In 1980, the Mighty Gabby called for the rescue of Barbadian art and artists. He wondered if this country understood that if it continued to stifle the movement and development of Caribbean art and artists, that such could have led to non-Caribbean cultural penetration. With money earned from his performances in Trinidad, Gabby facilitated the restoration of this school. For his effort, this Trinidadian school furnished him with an award. Kitchener was known to be one of Gabby's mentors. Black Stallion shares works with Gabby on 2 albums, which were produced by Eddie Grant. According to Gabby's former manager, the late Sir Dunn, the best of Gabby comes out in the presence of Sparrow and Penguin. The Mighty Sparrow performed with Mighty Gabby for over 30 years. In Barbados, Dr. Slinger Francisco performed at the battleground tent of Dr. Anthony Carter, Sparrow, and Gabby. Windfalls, 1988.
People asking me, Gabby boy, how you coming this year? Social commentary on politics is what they want to hear. I tell them I'm serving up some of that at another time, in another hat. But something burning deep down inside of me, and it's my duty to share with everybody. Wind force are coming with wind force. On course, I don't want to oppose. Hot like volcano on fire, biting like coming from fire, jumping in the pan, waving flag in my hand. Wind force taking over the land.
The second wave was the most impactful of all waves. This will form the principal focus of my statement. Between 1994 and 2000, this wave was championed by DJ Grandmaster with an Eddie Grant produced ring band presentation, Hand on the Bumper. MC, Calypsonian, Soca artist Mac Fingal with Big Belly Man, Rookie, who now resides in Trinidad, Crossfire, and the inevitable Square One with female vocalist Alison Hines. We must note that a lot of the musical material produced at that time by Square One, but especially Crossfire, was done by a Barbadian genius producer, Nicholas Bradley. Of course, Nicholas was sure to have infused his productions with the driving bass of the drums, reminiscent of the bass drum found in Barbados, infectious top bands. Square One was brought to Trinidad around 1995 by promoter Kenny Phillips. That initial impact within the diaspora was sustained for 5 years thereafter. Alison Hines, with a commanding voice, a bumper that was very evident, the ability to walk up beyond the wine and chip of the Trinidad Massive, and with musical accompaniment of sweet, belly-aching bass lines. Now, there was no soca band at that period in time with an upfront female vocalist. And so Alison paved the way for women in soca to empower themselves in that then normally male frontline dominated soca artist presentation. Her voice was loud but low pitched, thus representing the male that was dominant in the soca of that day. Alison of Square One did for women in soca what Singing Sandra of the Die With My Dignity fame had done for women in Calypso. They both were trailblazers. Alison's impact was so powerful that Trinidad's soca artists Destra, Terry Lyons, and Patrice ultimately established themselves as forceful female frontline performers. Patrice is said to have received soca material produced by Terry of Square One, which would have assisted her to closely pattern herself after Alison Haynes. You may refer to more work by Patrice Roberts. Bumper politics persist in Caribbean music. Bumpers have been particularly important in the history of soca music, as has been enunciated by Susan Yearwood in transnational soca performances, gendered re-narrations of Caribbean nationalism. She continued that by 1988, Sugar Bum Bum, which spoke to Audrey's Sweet Bumper, was generally accepted as the first big soca hit of Trinidad. Alison may be deemed, therefore, as Lord Kitchener's Audrey in performance, certainly showing us as a sign of identity and pride. Soca songs are indeed songs that promote co-performances. When Alison at large and in charge calls for and demonstrates a waka, the audience responds duly, not with a whine, but a Bajan waka, an excursion of the gyrations of the waist and the hips, movements reminiscent of the end of the harvest fertility dances of our African ancestors. In such an instance, my friends, there is an invasion of the African spirits. In 1994, the National Cultural Foundation of Barbados attempted to curb walking up during Kadooment by setting up a task force on walking up. Under the scrutiny of the walk-up police, we were being invited to wine and chip instead of walk up. Not even the debauchery was to be tempered with a little walk up. 1 year later, in 1995, in the meanwhile, Trinidadians and others were freely walking up with Alison Haynes and Square One. They were walking up to Ragamuffin, 1995.
Square One, 2 over. Pick up yourself and come forward, come forward. Ragamuffin, 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 jump up, jump up. Ragamuffin, 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 jump up and kick back, jump up.
According to historian Trevor Marshall, the little England that countries thought Barbados to be was then surprising all with rhythms and indeed proving to be a calypso powerhouse. The second wave ended in 2000 with the control of radio DJ of 98.9 of Trinidad, talking about Chinese laundry. The third recent wave, 2007 to 2017, was a period when the soca shifted from the Lego type soca to the groovy soca. The Bajan impact was certainly felt in 2007 when Barbadian songbird Biggie Irie won the Trinidad hosted international groovy soca competition with Nah going on. With this winning, Biggie Irie continued to impact the world. 10 years later, in 2017, came another groovy soca power impact, Peter Ram. In the steel pans large band category, Trinidad Panorama finals of that year. Second place, All Stars. Third place, Renegades. Fourth place, Exodus. Seventh place, Skiffle. Eighth place, Starlift. On the Savannah stage in Trinidad, all played Peter Ram's Good Morning.
It's another episode when we out on the road. This is what we love to celebrate, to celebrate. This is not Hollywood. No, we don't come out to pose. We just party with no restraint. From pillar to post, I just party the most. I behave in the worst. My conduct is so gross, 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 gross. From the time that I wake, I'm ready to bust the gate. You just get mash up again. Top over good morning.
Now, the fourth recent and current wave, beginning 27, is one which features primarily bashment soca artists led Pipe, Sadis, Lyric, Marston. This wave can be deemed an online wave established as a result of the increased usage of digital social media, propelled now even further by the onset of these extended COVID-19 lockdowns. Omar McQuilkin, known to us as Marsville, out of a family of musicians, including the likes of Charles Odell of the now defunct Barbadian band, the Opals, has been on the stage for the last 20 years. His musical impact in the form of bashment soca has been felt in many countries in the diaspora. In 2017, Marsville won the Regional International Soca Award with Give It To You. With over 10 million hits, he deems his 2016 bashment presentation as his most popular, produced by DJ Spider on the 1 o'clock rhythm. This song features, almost without saying, heavy bass riffs. Of course, we know the sound of 2016, Bim Bam.
Roughness! Say bye! Girl, shake it up!
Now, this song pivoted Marsville directly into the souls of Trinidadians and others in 2017. With this bashment soca expression, he was performing in at least 5 venues each night. In 2021, given the curves on travel, Marsville intends to continue to use the virtual space to create that impact with a focus primarily on the youth whom he says spend all their time online. May I assure you that just as you perceive a Bajan invasion with its developmental technicals in this diaspora, Trinidad promoter of Calypso Spectacular, Frank Martineau, would say to you that he knows of a Trinidad and a Trini invasion in Barbados and in the diaspora as his grouping toured the region in the 1980s. We may conclude, therefore, that at the root of this Bajan impact is the stimulation of African responses within our peoples, the commanding nature of the call and direction in the call and response activity of the chatwell, the grounding songs of the bass drums that accompany tribal African performances, the infectious gyrations of the fertility dances that signal the end of a harvest. My friends, all these transferred to our Calypso now continues to service in our Soca, our Lego. One Caribbean, one people. Pray tell, how could we possibly stand still? I thank you.